Okay, it's time for lab number 6. And again, it's going to be about the public, basically about FQDN filtering. And here there's a quick explanation, but let's get to it. So if you see now, this was the topology we're working on. And what we're doing is in US East 2 Spoke 1, we are going to launch a public subnet filtering gateway for FQDN filtering purposes. Someone might wonder why public subnet filtering gateway, not an egress gateway. If you recall that these test EC2 instances are public instances. So if we add an egress gateway is only about private instances versus the public subnet filtering gateway is for public instances. That's why we have to create a public subnet filtering gateway, not an egress gateway. Okay, so let's get started. So this feature is not fully migrated to the controller, to the Copilot as we speak. So we have to leverage the controller. So let me just log in. And then we have to go to controller. There is a security menu and public subnet. And this is where you can create the public subnet filtering gateway. And we will have to create it. Let me call it, give it the name. This is just the name. And it is in US East 2. And this is the VPC. So it is in US East 2. And the US East 2 Spoke 1, that is correct. And the unused subnet, I'm assuming, is going to be the same, 10.01.192. The size is going to be t3.small. And let me check which route table do they want me to manipulate, because you can decide which route tables you want to manipulate from these public subnets. So this is the route table. Let me just again check the name of 2A RTB. Yeah, this is the one. Okay. And now I should create the gateway. And obviously it will take some time. I'll just pause it for a few seconds while the gateway gets created. Okay, we have managed to create our public subnet filtering gateway. And let's just go ahead and follow the so let's just click on the actions and show details. And what this is showing you is there is a single route table from these public routing tables, the one we have chosen. So this public routing table still points to the internet gateway. There is nothing affected about it. But you will see that this public routing table, which is the one for A, 2A, the one we selected, the default, again, the default route for any public routing table will actually always point to the internet gateway. But this one, you can see that it's not pointing to the internet gateway. It's also not pointing to the spoke gateway because you can see that the target instance is different. This one ends with a DC7, this one ends with a 9DC. And this shows you that for this particular route table that we have specified during creation, the default routing actually points towards the PSF gateway, okay? We can do the same on the Copilot. So we can go to the Copilot again, and if you go to spoke gateways and you go to US East 2 spoke 1, you look at the VPC routing tables. And I believe it was the public 2A routing table. Yes. If you see, this is the routing table that we specified. This is clearer because the Copilot shows the instance name, the gateway name. So the RFC 1918 routes are pointing to the spoke, whereas the default route is actually pointing to this PSF gateway that we created. And this is all happening for the public route table that we chose. This is where our public instance actually lives. Okay, so I hope this is making sense. And so this is what we are showing. You can also go to the, another third place to verify the same. It's exactly the same thing, but you can go to cloud routes and go to VPC routes and do US East 2, what is it? Public, we want it to be, public. This is again the same route table, but you're just accessing it from the VPC routes instead of that particular gateway. You can see again the RFC 1918 point to the spoke one, whereas the default route points to the PSF gateway. The next thing you can do is you can enable the discovery. As we said, discovery is a way to find out what your workloads are accessing. So again, we're going to go back to the controller, and we're going to go to egress control, and we're going to choose our egress gateway and say, you know what, I want you to start discovering what are the workloads that are being accessed, or what are the domains that are being accessed. Now we want to SSH into US East 2 spoke 1 test 1. Let me check if this is open here. So this is US East 1 and this is US East 1. So we want US East 2. Let me get another tab and get this, get this to be a bit maximized. Sorry for this. Okay, I hope this is clear. Let me check. You can see my terminal. Okay. Now, so this is we want to SSH, but first we need to get the IP address of this instance. As always, we can open the topology. And we can search this instance. and we can get its IP address. We can go back to the terminal and say SSH. Now we are in the instance, and what it wants us to do is to curl, send a few curls. Again, discovery is on, so these should be collected if everything is working. So we're curling Aviatrix. We're getting a 301, which means this is actually working. There's the redirection, but everything is actually working, and we're getting a response from our final request. Okay, now if I go back to the controller, I say, please show me what you know, right? And the controller can see the ESPN and the Aviatrix and the Wikipedia. These are the three. The fourth one, it has to do with how the controller accesses, how the gateway talks to the controller. But the three URLs that we are putting are actually what we have requested, which shows the discovery is working perfectly well. Next, we are now assuming now we know what we want to enforce, so we're going to stop the discovery. Let's just give it a minute. Okay, so now, now that we have stopped discovery, we are going to launch a policy. We call it, what do we call it in the lab? We call it allowed sites. So let me create a policy called, let me get this out of the way. Allowed sites. This is just the name of the policy, it does not indicate anything. And we want to have it, it will be an allow model first, okay? Second is we will need to edit which websites are allowed, which should be Aviatrix and Wikipedia. It's only on port 443. So I will edit this and add new. And the first item will be star.aviatrix.com. You can do regex, you can do regular expressions. This is on 443. And it will be the base policy. Base policy means basically, I'll show it to you in a second, the allow. If we already put the base policy is allow, whenever we reference the base policy, it means we are allowing it. The next one is Wikipedia. Again, it's base policy and we update. And okay. Then what we can do is we can enable this policy. And finally, the policy is not doing anything unless we attach it to the gateway, which is our spoke one egress. So let's just give it a few seconds to attach. Now it has attached the policy allowed sites to the gateway spoke one egress as indicated in the notification. So now what we're going to do is we are going to do the curl test again. So if we try this same three curls, so I already have them. I will start with curl aviatrix.com. This works. The reason this works is it is part of the policy, right? We already allowed Aviatrix, so this is going to work. What did we also allow? We also allowed Wikipedia. So if we go Wikipedia, also this works. However, if we try ESPN.com, which was the long reply, this is no longer going to work. Okay, the reason is that it is not part of the allowed list, and so which means everything else is going to be denied. Yeah, you can see the curl error, and it says that it was not able, there was an error in trying to connect to ESPN.com. Now we can also go to Copilot and search for Egress and overview. And you're able to see here that the traffic that was the top rules hit are basically for Wikipedia and Aviatrix, and you can see the top domains, ESPN, all of these visited, and you can even see the URLs that are basically from which the traffic is being sourced. We are trying, our machine is 10.01.100 because if I do an ifconfig, you can see that this is 10.01.100. I guess this is the end of the lab. Next, we will go to FireNet.